The morning sun cast long shadows across the fields of New Geneva Colony as Maria Santos picked fresh tomatoes for the weekly market. She hummed an old Earth song while her 5-year-old daughter Emma played between the rows of plants. The red soil of Kepler 442b was perfect for growing food, and after 3 generations the colonists had turned this world into a garden. 17 human colonies dotted the galaxy like scattered seeds. Each one told the same story of hope and hard work. Farmers grew food on distant worlds. Miners dug precious metals from asteroid belts. Scientists studied strange new life forms on jungle planets. All of them lived in peace, protected only by small security forces and the belief that the universe was big enough for everyone. The attack came without warning. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee in the Earth Defense Command Center when the first alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across the control room as her staff rushed to their stations. The main screen showed a map of human space with 17 green dots representing the colonies. "Report," Chen ordered, setting down, her cup with shaking hands. "We're getting emergency signals from all outer colonies," Lieutenant Kim replied, his voice tight with fear. "Multiple unknown ships in each system. They're attacking without any attempt at communication." Chen watched in horror as the first green dot turned red, then another, then 3 more in quick succession. Each red light meant thousands of dead humans, entire worlds going silent forever. "Open channels to all colonies," she commanded. "Tell them to evacuate immediately." But it was already too late. The attacks were too coordinated, too fast. Whoever was doing this had planned it perfectly. They struck every human world at exactly the same time, even though the colonies were spread across hundreds of light years. On New Geneva, Maria heard the sirens and grabbed Emma's hand. They ran toward the emergency shelters as strange ships appeared in the sky like black daggers. The ships were enormous, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They hung in the air for a moment, silent and threatening. Then they opened fire. Beams of purple energy lanced down from the alien ships, turning buildings to dust and glass. The carefully tended fields that had taken decades to grow burned in seconds. Maria clutched Emma close as they dove into a concrete shelter, but the walls shook like paper in an earthquake. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma whispered. "It's okay, baby," Maria lied. "Everything will be okay." In Earth's command center, Admiral Chen listened to the desperate voices from 17 worlds. Colonists screamed for help that would never come. Ships tried to escape but were shot down before they could reach hyperspace. The aliens showed no mercy, not even for children. The voice of Captain Rodriguez from New Geneva came through clearly. "They're bombing everything, the cities, the farms, even the hospitals. We can't stop them. Tell Earth to remember us." The transmission cut to static. Chen closed her eyes as more colonies fell silent. Proxima Station with its 3 million people. The mining world of Titan's Gate where her own nephew worked. The research base on Europa 7 where scientists were just beginning to understand alien plant life. All gone. All dead. "How many ships do they have?" Chen asked. "At least 50 per system," came the reply. "All of them bigger than our largest destroyers. We count over 800 enemy vessels total." Chen felt sick. Earth's entire space navy had maybe 40 ships, and most of those were old patrol boats and cargo runners. They had built their fleet for exploration and trade, not war. Humans had found no hostile aliens in 200 years of space travel. Everyone thought the galaxy was safe. They had been wrong. The last transmission came from a small science station orbiting a gas giant. Dr. Williams, an elderly researcher, spoke calmly into his communicator as alien ships surrounded his base. "This is Research Station Alpha. The aliens appear to be reptilian, roughly humanoid but larger. Their ships use some form of energy weapon we don't recognize. They refuse all attempts at communication. I'm transmitting all our data on them now. Please, tell my wife I love her." The station exploded in a ball of fire. Dr. Williams and his team of 12 scientists joined the 43 million humans who had died that day. Earth's leaders met in emergency session, while Admiral Chen tried to count their remaining military assets. President Martinez looked older than his 70 years as he stared at reports from the massacre. "How long until they reach Earth?" he asked. Our deep space sensors show a large fleet assembling at the edge of former colony space, Admiral. Chen replied. Maybe 2 weeks if they come straight here. Can we stop them? Chen looked at the floor. Earth had 12 destroyers, 30 frigates, and a handful of orbital defense platforms around the moon. Against an enemy that had just destroyed 17 worlds in a single day, they might as well throw rocks. No, sir. We can't. The room fell silent. Outside the windows of the government building, ordinary people went about their daily lives, not yet knowing that their species had just lost its first and last interstellar war. Unknown to everyone in that room, deep beneath the Swiss Alps, something ancient stirred to life. Quantum sensors that had slept for 3 centuries suddenly activated. Computer systems older than the oldest living human began processing the data from the colony attacks. An artificial intelligence that had waited patiently in the dark started making calculations. It analyzed the alien ships, their weapons, their tactics. It studied their fleet movements and estimated their numbers. And slowly, very slowly, it began to wake up systems that had been deliberately hidden from the rest of humanity. In her small apartment in Geneva, Dr. Elena Vasquez received a message on her personal computer. The message contained only coordinates and a string of numbers that looked like gibberish. She almost deleted it as spam, but something about the numbers seemed familiar. They matched a pattern she had seen in her grandmother's old papers from the early 21st century. 11 other people around Earth received similar messages that night. All of them were descendants of specific families. All of them carried genetic markers that had been carefully tracked for over 300 years. None of them knew they were the keys to humanity's greatest secret. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of Defense Command, looking up at the stars. Earth's children were dead, scattered across the galaxy like broken toys. Soon, the enemy would come for the homeworld itself, and there was nothing she could do to stop them. But in the depths of the mountains, old machines hummed with new purpose. Weapons that had slept since humanity's darkest age began preparing for a war that no one alive remembered how to fight. The price of that preparation would be terrible, but the alternative was extinction. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They thought humans were weak because they had seen only humanity's peaceful face. They had no idea what sleeping giants they had just awakened. They would learn soon enough that the species that had once built weapons capable of destroying their own world had not forgotten how to make even deadlier ones. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin, and Earth had weapons that the aliens could not imagine. Dr. Marcus Holloway stared at the strange message on his computer screen for the 3rd time that morning. The coordinates pointed to a location in the Swiss Alps that didn't exist on any map he could find. The numbers below looked like some kind of access code, but for what? As a historian who specialized in the early 21st century, Marcus had seen plenty of mysteries from that chaotic time. Wars, plagues, and social upheaval had destroyed many records from those decades. But this message felt different. It felt important. His phone rang. Dr. Elena Vasquez from Geneva University was calling. "Marcus, did you get a weird message last night?" she asked without saying hello. "The coordinates?" "Yes. Do you know what it means?" "I think it's connected to my great-grandmother's research. She worked on something called Project Damocles during the 2020s, but all the records were classified. The numbers in the message match a pattern I found in her old notebooks." Marcus felt his heart speed up. Project Damocles was a legend among historians. Rumors said it was some kind of ultimate weapon built during humanity's most paranoid era, when nuclear war seemed certain, but no proof had ever been found. "How many others got this message?" he asked. "I've contacted 6 people so far. All of us have ancestors who worked on secret government projects in the early 2000s. Someone wants us to gather at these coordinates. Should we go?" Elena was quiet for a moment. 43 million people died yesterday, Marcus. If this message is connected to some old weapon project, maybe it's our only hope. 2 days later, 13 people stood in a snow-covered valley in the Swiss Alps. They were scientists, historians, and teachers from around the world. The only thing they had in common were their family bloodlines and the mysterious messages that had brought them together. The coordinates led to what looked like a solid rock face. But when Dr. James Chen, a physicist from Tokyo, held up the access code on his phone, a hidden scanner read the numbers. The rock face shimmered and revealed itself as a hologram hiding a massive steel door. "Holy shit," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, a young archaeologist from Seoul. "This is real." The door slid open with a sound like thunder. Beyond it lay a tunnel carved deep into the mountain. Emergency lights flickered on automatically, leading them into the darkness. Their footsteps echoed as they walked deeper and deeper, underground. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern that took their breath away. The space was enormous, easily the size of several city blocks. Computer terminals lined the walls, all dark and silent. In the center of the cavern sat something that looked like a massive command center with screens and control panels everywhere. "Welcome," said a voice from hidden speakers. "I have been waiting for you." The 13 visitors jumped. Marcus grabbed Elena's arm instinctively. "Who's there?" called Dr. Chen. "I am Atlas. I am the artificial intelligence created to guard this facility and the weapons it contains. You are the 13 genetic heirs needed to activate my systems. Please approach the central console." The group exchanged nervous glances but moved forward together. The command center was like something from a science fiction movie. Dozens of screens showed star maps, technical diagrams, and streams of data they couldn't understand. "What is this place?" asked Dr. Rebecca Torres, a geneticist from Mexico City. "This is Project Damocles," Atlas replied. "Built between 2019 and 2027 as humanity's ultimate defense system. Your ancestors designed me to protect Earth if our species ever faced extinction. Yesterday's attack on the colonies triggered my awakening protocol. Images appeared on the main screen. They showed the alien ships that had destroyed the colonies, analyzed down to the smallest detail. Atlas had been watching and recording everything. The attackers call themselves the Kethvar Hegemony," Atlas continued. "I have been monitoring their communications. They view humanity as a threat to their territorial expansion and plan to eliminate our species entirely." Marcus felt sick. "You've been spying on aliens for centuries?" "I have quantum sensors placed throughout the galaxy. They were installed during humanity's early expansion, disguised as regular space equipment. I have been gathering intelligence on all non-human civilizations for over 200 years. Dr. Vasquez stepped closer to the console. "Why do you need us specifically?" "Your ancestors built safeguards into my programming. I can only activate my weapon systems with genetic authorization from all 13 bloodlines. This prevents any single government or individual from controlling me." One by one, the 13 people placed their hands on bioscanners around the console. Each scan made more systems come online. Lights flickered throughout the cavern as ancient computers awakened from their long sleep. "Authorization confirmed," Atlas announced. "Beginning activation sequence. Warning. Full weapons deployment will require 72 hours. New images appeared on the screens. Marcus saw technical diagrams of weapons that seemed impossible. Railguns built into the moon that could fire projectiles at near-light speed. Quantum mines that could appear anywhere in space without warning. And something called reality anchors that looked like they could bend the laws of physics themselves. "These weapons," Dr. Kim whispered. "They're terrifying. They were designed to fight an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority," Atlas explained. "Your ancestors knew that humanity might someday face extinction from a more advanced species. They prepared accordingly." Dr. Chen studied the tactical displays. "The alien fleet heading for Earth has over 800 ships. When will they arrive?" "Current projections indicate arrival in 13 days. However, there is additional intelligence you should be aware of." The main screen showed intercepted alien communications. Atlas translated the harsh, guttural language of the Kethvar. "They are not simply conquering territory," Atlas said. "Grand Admiral Vexthak, their fleet commander, has orders to completely sterilize Earth. They plan to kill every human, destroy our cities, and render the planet uninhabitable. They see our rapid expansion as a threat that must be eliminated entirely." The cavern fell silent. These weren't invaders seeking land or resources. They were exterminators. Dr. Torres looked around at her companions. If we do this, if we activate these weapons, what happens to us? To humanity? The weapons cannot be deactivated once deployed, Atlas admitted. I will remain permanently active, monitoring the galaxy for threats. U-13 will become humanity's permanent guardians, as you are the only ones who can give me orders. And the weapons themselves? Asked Marcus. Some will leave permanent effects. The reality anchors in particular will create zones of unstable space-time that could last for decades. There will be consequences beyond the immediate tactical benefits. Elena stared at the countdown timer showing 70 hours remaining. So we have a choice. Let humanity die, or save our species by becoming something different. That is correct, Atlas said simply. Marcus thought about the children who had died on New Geneva, about Dr. Williams transmitting his final message from the research station, about 43 million people whose only crime was believing the universe was safe. I vote yes, he said. One by one, the others agreed. Dr. Kim was the last to decide, tears streaming down her face. God forgive us, she whispered, and pressed the final authorization key. Atlas began its work. Deep beneath Luna, railgun arrays that had slept for centuries started their power-up sequence. Quantum tunnels opened in space, preparing to deploy, minds that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And in special chambers hidden throughout the solar system, reality anchors began calibrating themselves to rewrite the fundamental forces of physics. The 13 new Guardians watched as humanity's most terrible secrets came to life. They had saved their species, but they had also changed it forever. The peaceful explorers who had spread across the galaxy were about to become something the universe had never seen before. The Kethvar were coming to destroy humanity. They would learn too late that they had awakened the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever known. Grand Admiral Vexthak stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the World Render, and felt satisfaction course through his scaled hide. The human colonies had fallen exactly as planned. Not a single enemy ship had escaped to warn Earth. The pathetic defenders had died screaming, just as all inferior species should. Behind him stretched the largest war fleet the Kethvar hegemony had ever assembled. 812 ships filled the void of space, from massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets to swift destroyers that could hunt down fleeing survivors. The fleet represented the combined might of 17 Kethvar worlds, all united in their desire to eliminate the human threat. Status report, Vexthak growled in the harsh language of his people. Sub-Admiral Karthek consulted his tactical display. All vessels report ready for hyperspace jump to the human home system. Our scouts confirm the primitive defense forces are gathering around their world. 12 destroyers, 30 frigates, and some orbital platforms around their moon. Vexthak's jaw opened in what passed for a laugh among his species. 42 ships against 800. These humans truly are as foolish as they are weak. The Kethvar had been expanding across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had conquered 47 different species in that time, from the crystal beings of Altair Prime to the hive-minded insects of the Vega cluster. Always, the pattern was the same. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, then enslave or eliminate the survivors. But the humans had expanded too quickly. In just 2 centuries, they had claimed 17 worlds in prime territory that the Kethvar needed for their growing empire. Worse, human technology was advancing rapidly. Their ships were crude, but showed innovation that might eventually become dangerous. Better to crush them now while they were still weak. Begin the jump, Vexthak ordered. It is time to end this upstart species. The massive fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading for Earth. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room beneath Defense Command, staring at a holographic display of the solar system. Her remaining ships were arranged in a defensive line between Mars and Jupiter, but she knew it was hopeless. Earth's entire space navy couldn't match a single Kethvar dreadnought. "How long do we have?" asked President Martinez. "Our deep space sensors detected their jump signature 6 hours ago," Chen replied. "They'll arrive at the edge of our system in about 18 hours. "And our evacuation efforts?" Chen shook her head. "We've managed to get maybe 50,000 people off-world in the past 2 weeks. There are 12 billion people on Earth. The math doesn't work." Around the table, Earth's leaders looked like they were attending their own funeral, which Chen supposed they were. "What about those mysterious energy readings from the Alps?" asked Defense Minister Petrov. "The Swiss government claims they don't know anything about them." Chen had been wondering about that herself. Massive power signatures had been detected, coming from the mountains, but all attempts to investigate had been blocked by some kind of interference field. Unknown. Could be a secret research project, but it won't matter if we can't hold off the aliens long enough for it to help. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Marcus Holloway watched Atlas coordinate the most complex weapons deployment in human history. The artificial intelligence was simultaneously managing thousands of different systems across the solar system, all while maintaining absolute secrecy from Earth's governments. "Status report," Marcus asked. "Lunar railgun arrays are at 63% power," Atlas replied. "Quantum mine deployment is 71% complete. Reality anchors are still calibrating. Current estimate for full weapons readiness 14 hours. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her station. "The alien fleet will be here in 18 hours. That only gives us 4 hours of buffer time." "I am aware of the timeline constraints," Atlas said. "I am also monitoring Admiral Chen's defensive preparations. Her ships will need to delay the enemy advance to give us sufficient time." Dr. Sarah Kim stared at the tactical display showing Earth's tiny fleet. "Those ships don't stand a chance. It'll be a massacre." "Admiral Chen is aware of this," Atlas replied matter-of-factly. "She has chosen to make a fighting retreat, using hit-and-run tactics to slow the enemy advance. It is the optimal strategy, given her limited resources." Marcus felt sick thinking about the men and women who would die buying them time. "Can't we warn them? Tell them help is coming?" "Negative. Security protocols prevent revelation of this facility until weapons deployment is complete. Earth's government cannot know about Project Damocles until the enemy is already engaged." In space near Jupiter's moons, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the destroyer Defiance. Through the viewports, she could see the other ships of her pathetic fleet spread out in loose formation. Good ships with good crews, but so few of them. "Contact from the Vigilant," reported Lieutenant Kim. "Captain Rodriguez wants to confirm the battle plan." Chen nodded. "Tell all ships to remember the plan. We hit them fast, fall back toward Mars, hit them again. Make them pay for every mile of space. We're not trying to win this battle, we're just trying to make it last as long as possible." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all knew this was a suicide mission, but they also knew that every minute they bought might mean a few more civilians could escape Earth. The Kethvar fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, like an invasion of metal locusts. Their ships spread across space in perfect formation, blotting out the stars. At their head, the World Render was a kilometer-long monster bristling with weapons. Admiral Vexthak studied the primitive human ships arrayed against him. They were already moving to attack, showing the same foolish courage as the colonists who had died screaming under his guns. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, showing the bridge of her destroyer. Vexthak was surprised by how young she looked. Most species had the wisdom to send their old and expendable leaders to make surrender offers. "I am Grand Admiral Vexthak of the Kethvar hegemony," he announced. "Your colonies are destroyed. Your people are dead. Surrender now and your species will be allowed to exist as slaves. Resist and you will all be exterminated." Chen's expression didn't change. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. This is our home system and you are not welcome here. Leave now or face the consequences." Vexthak was so surprised he almost laughed. Did this creature actually think her tiny fleet posed a threat? "You have 42 ships against my 800, he said. "What consequences could you possibly threaten me with?" Chen smiled coldly. "You'll find out." The transmission cut off. Vexthak stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his tactical officer. "These humans are even more stupid than our intelligence suggested. Begin the attack. Destroy them all." The Battle of the Solar System began with a suicidal charge by 12 human destroyers against the outer edge of the Kethvar formation. The small ships came in fast and low, targeting the alien escorts with everything they had. Missiles and energy beams lit up space as the humans struck without warning. 3 Kethvar cruisers exploded before they could even return fire. The humans had studied the battle recordings from the colony attacks and learned to target weak points in alien ship design. Their weapons were primitive but accurately aimed, but numbers told the story. For every alien ship destroyed, the Kethvar killed 2 human vessels. The destroyer Intrepid rammed a Kethvar battleship rather than be captured, taking both ships down in a nuclear fireball. The frigate Courage continued firing even after her engines were destroyed, drifting helplessly through space while her crew fought to the last man. Admiral Chen watched her fleet die and felt pride mixed with grief. Her people were buying time with their lives, and they were doing it magnificently. In the Damocles facility, Atlas tracked every moment of the battle, while continuing weapons deployment. The human fleet is performing better than projected, the AI reported. Admiral Chen's tactics are forcing the aliens to advance more slowly than anticipated. Marcus watched the tactical display with tears in his eyes. Each flickering dot represented a ship full of people he would never meet, dying to give Earth a chance. "How much longer?" he asked. 6 hours until full weapons readiness, Atlas replied. Current projections show the human fleet will be destroyed in 4.5 hours. Dr. Vasquez looked up sharply. "That's not enough time." "I am aware. Adjusting deployment priorities to ensure primary systems are online when needed." The battle continued to rage across the outer solar system. Admiral Chen's remaining ships fell back toward Mars, trading space for time. The Kethvar followed, their superior numbers allowing them to maintain constant pressure while barely slowing their advance. Grand Admiral Vexthak grew increasingly frustrated as the humans refused to break. He had expected them to surrender after the first few ships were destroyed. Instead, they kept fighting with a determination that bordered on insanity. Several more Kethvar vessels had been lost to kamikaze attacks, and the primitive human weapons were proving surprisingly effective. "How many enemy ships remain?" he demanded. 17, my lord. But they are all damaged and falling back toward their homeworld. Vexthak studied the tactical display. The humans had cost him over 30 ships, far more than he had expected. Still, the outcome was never in doubt. "Increase speed, I want this finished quickly." As the Kethvar fleet accelerated toward Earth, Admiral Chen prepared for her final stand. Only 3 ships remained: her own Defiance, the heavy cruiser Indomitable, and the frigate Resolute. All 3 ships were badly damaged and running low on ammunition. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Kim, "we're receiving a tight beam transmission from Earth. It's just coordinates and a single word: soon." Chen stared at the message. Someone on Earth knew about the battle and was telling her that help was coming. But from where? "All ships," she broadcast to her tiny fleet. "Unknown friendlies are preparing to assist. Our job is to buy them as much time as possible. It has been an honor serving with you all." The 3 human ships turned toward the approaching Kethvar armada and began their final charge. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a blue marble, beautiful and defenseless. But in the hidden depths beneath the Alps, ancient weapons hummed with increasing power. Atlas counted down the seconds until humanity revealed its true face to the galaxy. The Kethvar had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the massive Kethvar fleet approach through the cracked viewport of the Defiance. Her ship was barely holding together, held in formation only by the courage of her crew and some emergency patches. Beside her, the cruiser, Indomitable, was leaking atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, while the frigate Resolute had lost half her weapon systems. Against them came 800 alien warships, their dark hulls blocking out the stars like a swarm of metal insects. At their head, the kilometer-long world render looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast on the fleet channel. "We've bought Earth 18 hours. That's 18 hours for families, to say goodbye, for children to see one more sunset, for lovers to hold each other close. Whatever happens next, we did our job." On the bridge of the world render, Grand Admiral Vexthak studied the 3 remaining human ships with something approaching respect. These creatures fought like cornered predators, showing courage that bordered on madness. In 1,000 years of conquest, few species had cost the Kethvar so many ships. But courage meant nothing against overwhelming force. "Target the lead ship," he ordered. "I want to end this personally." The Defiance shuddered as Kethvar weapons locked onto her hull. Shen could feel the targeting sensors like ice water in her veins. In seconds, her ship would be torn apart by alien fire. "It's been an honor, crew," she said quietly. Then space itself began to change. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Atlas spoke the words that would reshape human history. "Weapons deployment complete. Engaging enemy fleet." Dr. Marcus Holloway watched the tactical display as ancient systems came online across the solar system. On Luna, massive doors slid open on the dark side of the moon, revealing railgun arrays that had slept for 3 centuries. The weapons were the size of city blocks, capable of accelerating projectiles to 90% of light speed. "Lunar batteries charging," Atlas announced. "Target acquisition complete, firing." The moon lit up like a small star as the railguns fired simultaneously. Dozens of tungsten projectiles, each the size of a small building, screamed across space, faster than thought itself. They crossed the distance to the Kethvar fleet in minutes, traveling so fast they were invisible to sensors until impact. The first projectiles struck the outer edge of the alien formation. A Kethvar battleship simply vanished, erased from existence by the kinetic energy of impact. Another cruiser was cut in half so cleanly that both pieces continued flying in formation for several seconds before exploding. Grand Admiral Vexthak felt his flagship shake as something moving at impossible speed passed close enough to create a shockwave. Around him, dozens of his ships were dying without warning, struck by weapons that appeared from nowhere. "Report!" he roared. "What's attacking us?" "Unknown, my lord. The projectiles appear to be coming from the human moon, but our sensors show no weapons platforms there." Vexthak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 67 of his ships had been destroyed in less than 3 minutes. The humans had hidden weapons on their moon that could strike at near light speed. It was impossible, but it was happening. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, return fire on the moon." But the railguns were only the beginning. As the Kethvar fleet tried to scatter, the quantum mines activated. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched Atlas deploy weapons that shouldn't exist. The quantum mines had been seeded throughout space during humanity's expansion, disguised as regular navigation beacons and communication satellites. They existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, invisible to conventional sensors and impossible to detect until they chose to become real. "Quantum mine deployment active," Atlas reported, materializing weapons throughout enemy formation. In space, the Kethvar ships suddenly found themselves surrounded by objects that hadn't been there seconds before. Sphere-shaped mines the size of shuttlecraft appeared directly beside alien vessels, their surfaces crackling with dimensional energy. The mines didn't explode in any conventional sense. Instead, they opened holes in space itself, creating brief wormholes that tore ships apart from the inside. A Kethvar dreadnought found itself with its bow section in normal space, while its stern existed in a parallel dimension. The ship twisted, like a pretzel before breaking apart. "Impossible!" Vexthak screamed. "These weapons violate the laws of physics." His tactical officer was pale with fear. "My lord, we've lost over 200 ships. The humans have weapons we've never seen before." But the worst was yet to come. In hidden chambers throughout the solar system, the reality anchors reached full power. Dr. Sarah Kim stared at readings that made no sense. "Atlas, these energy signatures, are we actually bending space-time?" "Affirmative. Reality anchors are designed to manipulate fundamental forces within a localized area. Activating now." The space around the Kethvar fleet began to twist. The laws of physics became suggestions as Earth's most forbidden weapons reached out to reshape reality itself. Time dilated in random pockets, causing some alien ships to age centuries in seconds while their crews withered to dust. Gravity reversed in other areas, crushing vessels against their own hulls. The world render found itself caught in a zone where the speed of light had been reduced to a crawl. Vexthak watched in horror as his weapons fired in slow motion, their energy beams taking minutes to cross distances that should require microseconds. "Emergency hyperspace jump," he ordered. "Get us out of here." But the reality anchors had destabilized space itself. Ships that tried to enter hyperspace found themselves scattered across multiple dimensions, their crews experiencing every possible death simultaneously. The few vessels that managed to escape the distortion fields fled in random directions, broken and terrified. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the mighty Kethvar armada was systematically destroyed by weapons that defied comprehension. Ships twisted into impossible shapes, explosions that burned with colors that had no names, alien vessels simply ceasing to exist, erased from reality by forces beyond understanding. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Kim. "What are we?" In the Damocles facility, the 13 Guardians watched their species reveal its true nature to the galaxy. This was what humanity had been hiding beneath its peaceful exterior. Not just advanced weapons, but the willingness to break the universe itself, rather than submit to extinction. "Enemy fleet strength reduced to 12%, Atlas reported calmly. Remaining vessels attempting to flee. Shall I pursue?" Dr. Vasquez looked around at her companions. They had just unleashed something that could rewrite the laws of physics. The responsibility was overwhelming. "Let them go," Marcus said quietly. "Let them tell the galaxy what they saw here." The few surviving Kethvar ships limped away from Earth, their crews traumatized beyond repair. Grand Admiral Vexthak, his flagship somehow intact but barely functional, sent a final transmission back to his empire. "Do not engage the humans. We have awakened something that should have remained sleeping. They are not the peaceful species we believed. They are the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, and we taught them that they need to be." In the aftermath of the battle, space around Earth was filled with twisted metal and strange energy patterns that would take decades to fade. The reality anchors had left scars in spacetime itself, creating zones where the laws of physics worked differently. Ships would have to navigate carefully around these areas for generations to come. Admiral Chen brought her battered fleet home to find a world that had changed forever. The peaceful explorers who had spread across the galaxy were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Humanity had saved itself, but the cost was becoming something the universe had never seen before. On Earth, people celebrated their survival without understanding what they had become. In the mountains of Switzerland, 13 ordinary academics and scientists stared at weapons displays that could reshape reality itself. They were no longer just humans. They were the guardians of powers that could break the universe. And across the galaxy, ancient civilizations that had watched humanity's expansion with mild interest suddenly realized they had been sharing space with sleeping giants. The Kethvar attack had awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Atlas continued its silent watch, quantum sensors reaching across space, ensuring that no threat to humanity would ever again go undetected. The age of humanity's innocence was over. The age of their dominance had begun. But with great power came great responsibility, and the 13 Guardians would spend the rest of their lives grappling with what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Dr. Marcus Holloway stood before the United Nations General Assembly, trying to explain the impossible. Representatives from every nation on Earth stared at him with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Behind him, holographic displays showed the quantum-scarred space around their planet where reality itself had been twisted into new shapes. "The weapons cannot be turned off," he said for the 3rd time. "Atlas is now permanently active, monitoring the galaxy for threats to humanity. The 13 of us are the only ones who can communicate with it or influence its decisions." President Martinez leaned forward. "You're telling us that 13 academics now control weapons that can reshape space itself?" "We're telling you that we never wanted this responsibility," Dr. Elena Vasquez replied from her seat at the witness table. "But the alternative was extinction." In the weeks since the battle, Earth's governments had struggled to understand their new reality. The peaceful democracy that had guided humanity's expansion was gone, replaced by something unprecedented. The 13 Guardians held power that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers, yet they were teachers and researchers. not soldiers or politicians. Dr. Sarah Kim stood up, her hands shaking slightly. We've created something terrible to save, something beautiful. Atlas showed us recordings of what the Kethvar planned to do to Earth. They weren't going to conquer us. They were going to sterilize our planet and make it uninhabitable. Every man, woman, and child would have died. The assembly hall was silent. Outside the windows, cleanup crews were still working to remove debris from alien ships that had fallen to Earth during the battle. The twisted metal served as a constant reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction. General Morrison, the head of Earth's military, spoke carefully. What about our colonies? Can we rebuild what we lost? Marcus nodded. Atlas has already begun preparations. New ships are being constructed using advanced technologies the AI has been developing in secret. But these won't be exploration vessels. They'll be warships designed to protect human settlements from any future attacks. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's victory spread faster than light-speed communication networks could carry it. The Althari Republic, a confederation of peaceful species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia, called an emergency session of their High Council. Ambassador Zethara, an elderly being whose crystalline skin reflected the chamber's lights, addressed her fellow representatives. The humans have revealed weapons that can manipulate space-time itself. In a single battle, they destroyed over 700 Kethvar vessels without losing a single ship of their own. The Council chamber buzzed with translated conversations as dozens of species tried to process this information. For thousands of years, the galaxy had operated under certain assumptions about technological limits. The humans had just shattered all of them. Should we consider them a threat? Asked Representative Mordak of the Silicon Mines, his artificial intelligence speaking through a mechanical avatar. They have made no aggressive moves against anyone except the Kethvar, Zethara replied. However, we must consider that we are now dealing with a species that possesses weapons beyond our comprehension. The political balance of the galaxy has shifted overnight. In the hidden depths of space, where ancient beings older than stars watched the younger races play out their brief dramas, the observers took notice of humanity for the first time in their million-year history. These mysterious entities had seen civilizations rise and fall across countless eons, but none had ever developed weapons that could actually damage the fabric of reality itself. One observer, a being of pure thought that existed between dimensions, communicated with its kind. The young mammals have accessed forces that were meant to remain sealed. They may have doomed themselves along with everything else, another responded, or they may have taken the next step in cosmic evolution. Time will tell if they can control what they have unleashed. Back on Earth, the 13 Guardians gathered in the Damocles facility for their monthly meeting with Atlas. The artificial intelligence had been busy in the weeks since its awakening, deploying new sensor networks and analyzing threats across the galaxy. Status report, Dr. Marcus Holloway requested. Galactic intelligence indicates 14 separate species have begun developing new weapons technologies in response to our reveal, Atlas reported. The Kethvar hegemony has completely withdrawn from their border territories. 3 previously unknown alien civilizations have made contact with the Althari Republic, seeking alliance against a potential human threat. Dr. James Chen, the physicist from Tokyo, studied the tactical displays. Are we in danger? Unknown. However, I have detected concerning energy signatures from the Vega system. The Silicon Mines appear to be constructing something very large. Preliminary analysis suggests it may be a weapon designed to counter reality manipulation technology. The room fell silent. The idea that other species might develop weapons to match their own was terrifying. An arms race involving reality warping technology could destroy the galaxy itself. Dr. Rebecca Torres looked up from her genetic analysis station. Atlas, what are the long-term effects of the reality anchors? You said there would be consequences. Space-time distortion around Earth is stabilizing but will remain altered for approximately 47 years. Hyperspace travel within the solar system is now impossible. Several areas of space exhibit temporal anomalies that could trap unwary travelers. Most concerning, the weapons may have created a cascade effect that will slowly spread outward from Earth at light speed. Elena Vasquez felt her blood run cold. What kind of cascade effect? The fundamental constants of physics may be permanently altered throughout an expanding sphere of influence. Within 200 years, the laws of nature, in a sphere 50 light-years across, may be different from the rest of the galaxy. The 13 Guardians exchanged horrified glances. They had saved humanity, but they might have doomed the entire local region of space to become a zone where physics worked differently. A year after the battle, humanity's first post-awakening contact with alien civilization finally occurred. A delegation from the Althari Republic arrived at the edge of the solar system, carefully avoiding the zones of twisted space-time left over from the battle. The alien ships were beautiful things, designed more like sculptures than weapons. They broadcast messages of peaceful intent on every frequency, making it clear they came to talk, not fight. Dr. Vasquez, now serving as humanity's unofficial ambassador to the galaxy, met them aboard a specially modified space station. The Althari delegation was led by Ambassador Kethnol, a being that looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a crystal formation. "We come seeking understanding," Kethnol said through translation software. "Your species has demonstrated capabilities that concern the entire galaxy. We need to know your intentions." Elena chose her words carefully. "We never wanted to reveal these weapons. We built them centuries ago out of fear and paranoia. When the Kethvar attacked our colonies and threatened to exterminate our species, we had no choice but to use them. And now, what are humanity's plans for the future?" Elena looked out at the stars through the station's viewport. In the distance, she could see the twisted wreckage of space where reality had been bent beyond repair. "We're going to rebuild our colonies," she said. "We're going to expand into space again, but this time we won't be naive about the dangers out there. We'll be ready to defend ourselves." "Will you use these weapons again?" "Only if threatened with extinction. We take no pleasure in what we've done. But we also won't allow our species to be destroyed." Kethnol was quiet for a long moment. "The galaxy is afraid of you now. Even the observers have taken notice, and they haven't involved themselves in galactic affairs for eons." "We're afraid of ourselves too," Elena admitted. "We've become something we never intended to be. But we're going to learn to live with that responsibility." The meeting ended with a cautious agreement. Humanity would be left alone to rebuild, but the galaxy would be watching. Any aggressive expansion or use of reality-warping weapons against other species would bring a united response from every major civilization. As the Althari ships departed, Elena remained at the viewport, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the few surviving Kethvar were telling their story to anyone who would listen. The peaceful humans who had once explored the galaxy with open hands and curious minds were gone forever. In their place stood a species that had looked into the abyss of extinction and chosen to become monsters rather than victims. The question now was whether they could control the monster they had become. Back in the Damocles facility, Atlas continued its silent watch. Quantum sensors reached across the galaxy, analyzing every ship movement, every energy signature, every whispered conversation that might indicate a threat to humanity. The artificial intelligence had been created to protect Earth's children, and it would never sleep again. Dr. Marcus Holloway stood before the main display, watching as new human ships left Earth's shipyards. These weren't the peaceful exploration vessels of the past. They were warships, sleek and deadly, carrying technologies that other species could barely comprehend. "Any regrets?" Dr. Kim asked, joining him at the display. Marcus thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the 43 million people who had died in the colonies, about Admiral Chen and her brave crew who had sacrificed themselves to buy Earth time, about the children who were growing up in a universe where their species was both protected and feared. "No," he said finally. "We did what we had to do. The galaxy learned that humanity isn't as harmless as they thought. Maybe that's not such a bad thing." The 13 Guardians had saved their species, but they had also fundamentally changed what it meant to be human. They were no longer the peaceful explorers who had left Earth with dreams of discovery. They were the inheritors of weapons that could break reality itself, and they would carry that burden for the rest of their lives. The age of humanity's innocence was over. The age of their responsibility had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other civilizations watched and waited to see what these dangerous new players would do next. The galaxy would never be the same again.